All right, good morning. Welcome back to the second deep dive with Tim. We may still come up with a new name. Of course, the cat wants to come say hi right now. We may still come up with a new name, but right now we are calling it tentatively just deep dive with Tim. Maybe tinkering time, tinker time. Not sure. We're still workshopping. Name ideas. But this is a weekly stream where I will show you what I am working on. Usually that is going to be something in or around the CircuitPython project. If you don't know what CircuitPython is, you can learn more about it at circuitpython.org. If you want to help support CircuitPython, as well as myself and lots of other folks who work on CircuitPython and other open source hardware and software, one of the easiest ways you can do that is by supporting Adafruit. Adafruit makes CircuitPython as well as lots of other open source software possible by paying a team of folks to work on it, including myself. There is weekly sales going on right now. So this week is the Raspberry Pi A Plus sale week. If you want accessories and things for your Raspberry Pi Model A Plus, you can get those on the cheap this week, and of course you can check back next week for another new item sort of category to be on sale. Again, that's adafruit.com where you can find that stuff. The link for the sale is there. Pi A Plus sale week this week again, so you got a couple of days, but you'll want to get those orders in quick to make sure you can get some, and then check back next week for the new one. With that, I will say what is up over in the Discord to Paul and Liz. Nice to see you folks this morning. What does this say? Warning, the... whoop, don't need that one. Oh, I see. Yeah, we can't necessarily do too much about that. All right. Let me take just a second to organize some of these windows. I was launching Windows up to the last second here. Okay. All right, now we're looking a little more under control. Okay, there we go. So, I am back into light sensor stuff. If you are interested in this sort of thing, I worked on this a little bit on Deep Dive on Friday, last Friday. And so I am still doing that a bit. I have more or less knocked out the driver for the APDS 9999, but I did want to go back and experiment with some hardware tests, so I figured I would do that on the stream today. One of the things that I had pointed out to me, let's open this one, it will make it easy to see, is Lady Ada, when she worked on the Arduino driver for the APDS 9999, we also created this HW tests, hardware tests folder, which has a bunch of these, basically the same kind of thing that I was trying to work on Deep Dive, this sort of example script or test script that is not necessarily intended for a person so much to run it and see the output, but is more so to verify that the sensor is behaving as expected, that the breakout's doing everything it's supposed to do with all of its different configurations and all of that stuff. So we did an RGB one on the Deep Dive, and I started a brightness level threshold one as well, and that one is working now. But when I talked to her the other day during our meeting, she pointed out this folder which has actually a bunch of these things. So we're going to try to mimic these over to the CircuitPython one, partially to test out the driver and make sure everything is behaving as it should, and partially as an experiment in moving this stuff over and having an agent be able to write and run this sort of test that validates that the hardware and the driver are working as expected. So It does start with a blank one, which we don't need as much, although I suppose we could give it one. I don't know that we need the blank one necessarily. I imagine the blank one being something she copies in to start the rest of them from. With CircuitPython, we have sort of less boilerplate, right? Like with Arduino, it's got the... I mean, we do still have a main function. I don't know, we might as well make a blank one, I suppose. And I have this loaded up to work actually in a different folder. Python HW tests. Zero blank, I think. Blank sketch, they call that one, so we'll just leave it as blank. Sketch is more of an Arduino term, I think. And in there, I'm actually just gonna put, I think, a main loop and maybe the imports for the driver. Technically, that's not part of blank, but I suppose we could do these as well. Oh. Okay. One thing I did notice is some of these towards the end have a servo hooked up, it looks like, and I do not have that hardware. So if I show you the camera, I have only Fruit Jam, I have the sensor connected with Stemma, and I do actually have the interrupt pin is connected as well with one of these little jumper pusher hooky things. I don't know the term for these things, but you kind of push the plunger and it gives you a little hook on this end. It's covered up by the white cable, but it gives you a hook there that you can hook to a wire, or in this case I have a hook to the soldering hole there. Here's the pinhole on the breakout, but I don't have a servo hooked up. That would be a thing that would be kind of cool to do, so I will try to figure out. I don't know if she has an arm on it or something. I should look back through maybe Desk of Lady Ada's and see if she talked about this one. I know she did some hardware testing on there. But I was thinking, because this sensor does proximity as well, so if you had a servo with like an arm, you could kind of raise and lower an arm, and it could be checking how far away the proximity reading is. But I do not have that hooked up, so we are going to have to skip those ones. So I think 0 through 17 are really the only ones we can do with the hardware we have, I think, although I am not 100% sure if any of these need anything else. So we'll see when we come to them. I think what I'll do is probably just start with the first couple, have it do a couple. Please make videos on DRM radio equipment also. DRM radio equipment over in YouTube. Raman Kumar says. I do not... Is that getting cut off in the... Sorry, 1 second here. Is that getting cut off in the... It is. Okay, let me fix that real fast. This one like that. There we go. Okay. You guys can see the YouTube chat there. Yeah, and I don't have much... I don't have much experience with radio... I don't know what DRM, if that means like... So DRM, the acronym I'm familiar with is like digital rights, like lockdown on a CD or whatever. I don't know what that means in regards to radio, or if there's a different acronym perhaps. So I am doing a project sort of in the background here. These sensors are my main focus right now, and I have another one lined up after this one. But I do have another project where I'm kind of like personally for me first, starting to learn and play with SDR a little bit. But it's all brand new stuff to me, so it will be very much of the like very basic how to set up this thing and what it can do, and that's about it. Not anything super duper in depth. One more thing that we should have in this folder, I think, is the actual driver. So part of what I'm experimenting here with is what all context is best to give the agent that's working on it. You could I could just give it the full repo, but I suspect that it's kind of sucking in all of the files in that repo into context, which is not entirely necessary. And so I am partially just kind of trying to experiment with like, what is the minimum sort of set of files that I can give it and get a successful result from this. So I think the driver would be good. Do we need the Arduino driver? We probably ought to have the Arduino driver just in case. Cat's going a little crazy on me. Okay, so let's try to have it do like 1 through 5 and see if it can. We'll start there. And I do actually this time have the CircuitPython device. This Fruit Jam is actually plugged into the Raspberry Pi that this Pi agent is running in. So it should be able to run the code and actually test the outputs as well, which these have output, yeah. So it should basically run the code and then validate that it matches output.txt. In fact, why don't we start with just one, and then if that succeeds, we'll do a couple afterwards. I think we should probably up this maybe a little bit. Okay, please. What's with the sudden live today? Today is March 10th day. So, today is March 10 day. I don't know if that's a holiday somewhere. But I am starting up a live stream. Last week was the first one, 10 a.m. Central Time, Central U.S. Time. So that's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, or 8 a.m. Pacific Time. On Tuesdays is this stream here, Deep Dive with me, Tim. Deep Dive with Tim, although we may still change the name like I mentioned before. But yeah, we are starting up. I started up this stream last week, and we'll be doing it weekly in the same slot. So pretty much every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. U.S. Pacific. Mario Day for Mario. Oh, right. M-A-R, nice. I did not know about that one. I should have, we could have done like well, I don't know what I would do, some Mario pixel art. I did some Mario pixel art on stream like a year or two ago, but it was kind of a random. I don't think I did it on the specific day. It was kind of random. Just doing some pixel shifting for rotating. All right, please copy. Let's say please convert the Arduino hardware test found at Arduino HW. I'm gonna switch this back to here so that I'm looking at the files I'm writing about. Arduino HW tests /01. Please convert the Arduino hardware test found at that to CircuitPython. Put it at CircuitPython HW tests 01 begin test code.py. It's converted. Please run it on the connected CircuitPython device and verify that the output matches the specified output from output.txt. It's looking in IDEA for some reason. IDEA folder. I don't know, IDEA is a different thing that I still say because it's a brand I used to work with at work. Different work. Initializes the sensor, does the begin stuff, looking at that. Reading the blank one. It is still, I mean, it is honestly still sucking in kind of a lot of context, even with just this. All right, and it's doing the run. So the skill that I have set up lets it run the code and check the serial results. And so that is what it has done right at the end here. It's interesting that it's CD'd to it to run it instead of just running it with full path, but I mean, 6 of one, half a dozen of another, I suppose. So yeah, it did that. Python, the way it's set up is it's a Python script that will Control-C a couple of times and then Control-D to run the code, and then after it Control-Ds, it will read all of the input, and then it will return that to the caller. So whoever calls this Python script will cause code.py on the device to get executed, and then they'll get back the output from serial. And then there's a timeout of like after it's been idle for X amount of time, it will assume it's over. So output matches expected output.txt. Here's a summary. Was converted, replaced Arduino. We probably don't need this. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. We replaced begin and this with CircuitPython. Yeah. Okay. What is DRM radio? Yeah. I'm not sure on that one. Mario Day. I'll have to remember that. March 10th. I'll have to try to remember that and think of something Mario related, but not too close, because we don't want the Nintendo ninjas coming after us or anything. Maybe we could work on a 2D platformer or something. Although this is a little difficult in CircuitPython with the way we do display, truthfully. Maybe we come up with something, though. APDS. Begin, try accept around the constructor, which raises runtime error. Card ID. Actual output is there, expected, 0C, revision 2, test passed, very good. Okay. I wonder if it actually does need this. This is another thing I'm kind of experimenting with as I familiarize myself with these tools. Is like, what are the different thinking levels, like what do they sort of equate to in how well it does? All right, so let's take a look at what it actually did. So everything that it wrote back to me makes sense, but that's what it's good at doing, is writing stuff that sort of makes sense. The code will really tell us here, though, which is looking basically as expected, right? Try to set up the sensor. We don't really need this. It's a bit verbose for a comment here, but it's fine. Maybe the other one has it in the Arduino one. It's possible. Pass, fail. Yeah, so that's all. That's very straightforward. Looks good to me. I will tell it we don't need this, just so that hopefully it won't do that on the future ones. It will possibly run the code again. I'm not sure. Nope. Didn't do it again. Okay. Sometimes it decides it wants to run the code after it makes the change. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure exactly how. I mean, you could ask it, of course, and then it will, but yeah, there we go. One of the things I like about having this way set up with my IDE here, mapping the file, is I can also kind of sit and watch the local history. So for any change I can go back through this list. It will just keep adding up with every single change, and I can see very easily left to right exactly what changed. If I want to undo it, I can just pop the arrow there to bring it back. So that is kind of a convenient usage of the history inside the IDE with this. So proximity read test. One thing that's tricky about this one is it might... I don't know. This example looks a little weird. Or this output, rather. I suspect this one is not going to pass because I don't think we're going to get these exact values. Because it really will depend on how close it is to the thing in front of it, basically. Oh, visual bar. It's trying to print like a... almost trying to print like a status bar or yeah, I mean like a progress bar, basically progress bar type. Like there would be more pipes if it was, or actually equal signs, not pipes. Interesting. Okay. Have you ever used Claude Embedded LLM? I don't know what it's actually called, but I described what it might do. Claude's Embedded LLM. I'm not sure what the embedded one is. So the setup that I have running is Claude through a thing called Pi Coding Agent. Right here. Bad Logic, Mario. Actually, a really crazy story, small world. I worked with the person who made this. Bad Logic is their GitHub Mario. Like Zerkner, I think is their name. Way back, many years ago. One of the very first things I ever got paid to do software-wise was make levels for a mobile game that this person made. It's crazy to like pop back up with their newer thing and see their name pop up again. But in any case, that's a tangent. But this Pi. So the way the repo work is a little weird. It's Pi Mono is the repo, but it's actually Pi Coding Agent, and it's just inside. So there's like one big mono repo, and then inside of that, there's a bunch of projects all centered around the same sort of agent loop mechanism. But Coding Agent right here, this is the one that I have been using with Claude lately. So I have not used Claude Code. I mean, I used it in the past last year sometime, but I don't use it regularly. The specific Claude Code, the one that Anthropic released. And I'm not sure about embedded LLM, if that's a different thing or not. I don't know. But I don't think I've used it unless this kind of counts as it. Okay, so we'll have it try the proximity one. I don't necessarily think that's going to work, but we can have it try. And then why don't we just do like 2 through 5, let's say we'll have it do. And then I think what I'll say is like, if the tests are failing, just note it and move on to the next one. Yeah. Zero 2 through 0.5 to CircuitPython next. Let's actually be a little more specific. So if they don't pass because the sensor data differs from the expected output due to different lighting or proximity environmental factors. That is okay for now. Just note that it didn't pass and move on to... I don't know if this will work very well. I'm not sure if it's like good at this idea of just move on to the next one necessarily. We'll see. All right, it is reading a bunch of those all up front. What IDE am I using? I am using PyCharm IDE, and I do not have Claude integrated with the IDE directly, but what I have is, so I actually have kind of a complex setup, all things told. So I have a Raspberry Pi 5, which is plugged in separate from my main computer, right? I'm on a desktop computer here, in my case, Linux, Ubuntu. I have a Raspberry Pi 5 that is set up separately. On the Raspberry Pi 5 is where I have the Pi coding agent installed. And then what I have done is used a tool called SSHFS. So it's, I think, stands for SSH file system. SSHFS is a tool that lets you connect to another computer on the network over SSH. So you use public-private keys or the same authentication that you can use for SSH. But instead of logging into a terminal like what this terminal here is, where I can just run commands and do stuff, instead of logging into a terminal, this SSHFS basically mounts it as a file system. So if I go to here, PyMount, this PyMount, these are all files that are actually on the Raspberry Pi. So in my case, I'm inside of this APDS hardware test thing. So then what I did is once that link is made, once I have that file system set up to where I can see the Raspberry Pi's files on my PC, then I just go and open the folder that I'm working inside of in PyCharm. So this folder is opened in that PyMount folder, which is actually mounted over to the Raspberry Pi. So not integrated directly, but it gives me the ability to see the changes right away and, again, track that local history, which is super convenient. Ooh. All right, it's working through them. It's on to number 3 so far, so we could start taking a look at what it's done. MIDI read test. So got the sensor. It's got an awfully large try except. I also don't necessarily super love that it's just exception and not runtime. Did it do that here as well? Yeah, okay, so realistically, we should have stopped it here. After the first one, I should have told it to not just use a broad exception. So we'll let it finish, but I will ask it to go back and do that. I think it. I think this could also just wrap the initialization rather than the full everything inside of here. I don't think that's necessary. But it does basically look correct to me. We should be able to tie them together on one PC like Windows or just on the Pi. You totally could. In fact, PyCharm, like the IDE that I'm using, PyCharm, there are newer ones that have the agent interface built in. I just haven't downloaded the newest one. And so you could do, and I don't know much about that integration again because I don't use it that way, so I don't know exactly how it works or what all it can hook up to or what all it can do or can't do. But I know the newest one, just like every other product in the world, pretty much the newest version of PyCharm and the rest of the JetBrains IDEs, they have the AI agent built in. So you can use that. Personally, like my advice personally, I would not recommend at all running an agent that has access to run commands like this Pi coding agent that's in here, or Claude Code or OpenClaw or any of the ones that are like that. They can run commands, right? Like it's running this command in the shell. Personally, I would advise like do not do that on your main computer, or like another way to look at it would be do not do that on a computer that has anything you care about on it or anything that you don't want shared on it. Because it could accidentally delete it. That has happened a bunch of times. There's like news articles you can read about AI agent accidentally deleted the stuff. Or it could accidentally share anything that it could find on that drive. So like Personally, I don't really want it on the same one, as much as it would be nice to just have it all in one sort of box and not mess with the separate systems and the linking the file system. And like, it would be nice, it would be convenient, but I think it's kind of dangerous to run it all on one main computer. Now, what you could do is, if you have like a dev box that's made for that, you could run it in there. You could also do containers, right? Containers are a big thing. You could be running it inside of a software container as well. But then you're back to the idea of like different computers. They're virtual in that case, but different computers that you're having to link together. So yeah, there are options out there. I just landed on this one because I like the extra guardrails I can put on it. Inside the Pi, inside the Raspberry Pi, I have a separate user that the agent runs under. It doesn't have access to sudo, so it can't do, some of the most egregious stuff. And I also have firewall rules that stop it from seeing different things on the network and stuff. So it's easy to like contain when it's on the Raspberry Pi like this. So it actually says that the proximity read passed, which is fascinating. The RGB read passed, and then the one it says that failed was light settings. That seems pretty close. Falling outside the 20% tolerance. Oh, interesting. So it's saying the test failed, but it seems to think that that the Arduino one failed as well, and that it's really just a factor of how the sensor works and not that the test is wrong. But again, it's like it writes stuff that seems like it makes sense. We need to validate it for sure. My PC does have Docker. Would that work? Docker possibly could work. I don't have a lot of experience with it personally, so I'm not very well equipped to answer for sure. Podman I've used a little bit more, but is still like, I would not feel qualified to answer, frankly, because I still use it very little. But it can work. I know Scott, who does the deep dive on Friday, the main CircuitPython developer, he is looking into containers and stuff for kind of dual purpose, but this is one of the main reasons why he's looking into those. So he may have more advice if you catch him on Friday. As far as the containers go, let's see. Inspiro on YouTube says, I use your drivers VL3053 L1X and MPU 6500 and won a hackathon. Thank you a lot. Keep making open source drivers. That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations for winning the hackathon. Yeah, hackathon's a lot of fun. Good job on that. And yeah, we are working on some more open source drivers right now, in fact. So you caught us at a good time, as it turns out. Proximity is checking the proximity. It is checking the overflow. It is printing the proximity, the bars, the overflow. So that looks pretty sane to me. Light sensor enabled RGB mode. Light gain 3x. This is somewhat arbitrary. Depends on your environment. Which my environment is wildly fluctuating today because it's sunny, but there's clouds that keep covering it up. So then it gets like super dark. Okay, so we're reading IR values. Shine lights. So it's going to run for 10 seconds. It is going to take the readings. It is going to calculate the lux. It's going to print. And it's not actually validating that anything equals anything in particular, but it's just making sure that readings come in. And it does look pretty sane to me. This is a little awkward. I don't know about the whole tabs in there, but okay. So cycle through the gain settings and verify the getters and setters are working. So like after we set the gain to 3x, then we should be able to read the gain back and it should still be 3x. For value labels, set the gain, sleep a little bit, check the gain. Print fail if it didn't work, otherwise continue. Well, no. Print fail if it didn't work, and then continue on to the next one from the loop. I wish I could just disable that. Take a reading as well. Sort of ancillary to this particular test, but it does it anyway. Seems good. Light settings. All right, so this is the one that it's saying that it failed, but it Thinks that it was just the way the sensor is or something, and it thinks the Arduino one failed too. So light sensor enabled, RGB mode true, passed failed counts. We have a dictionary. Well, it's not a dictionary. It's a list of tuples setting up strings to enums to values. Not sure where these come from. These are from one of the lookup tables, I guess, in the driver. Testing resolution settings with readings, so it's going to go through those. It's going to take the reading. It's going to sleep. It's going to check if the resolution matches the resolution value. Then it's going to get the reading, print, pass, or fail, print the results. So the label, the green value, which sort of correlates to brightness, and then the result, pass or fail. After changing the gain, can you check whether the value... Yeah, so that's exactly what it's doing. Yeah. So right in here, back on this one in the gain, it is going light gain right here. So it's setting the gain on this one based on the values that came out of this list. So those get set right there, and then right here, it's checking it back. So then it will check the current value. If it does not equal the expected value, it will print the fail and the error. And then if it does equal the expected value, it will skip this block. So it won't do the fail. It will do this. It will count it as a pass. Yeah, definitely. And then this one is... All right, so we did a bunch of readings here with the resolution, and it has counted up some pass and fails, but then it's also going to go on and do the rate getter and setter. So this is almost like a twofer in this one. And this part looks the same as what we actually just saw back here in the gain. It's basically setting, this time, the rate steps rather than the gain, and then it's going to verify that it reads them back correctly. So set the current one right there. Verify that it gets read back correctly. Pass if it does, fail if it doesn't. Oh, this is actually more than twofer. We got a third one here, timing test, which will go with fastest resolution. So the resolution is the resolution of the data. The lower the resolution, the faster the read time. Fastest. Not supposed to... The fastest. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So set that one to there, then go through the loop, set the rate to the current rate, clear any pending data. I'm less sure that that's necessary, but I don't know. Shouldn't hurt anything either, I don't think. I'm guessing it copied it from the Arduino code. Not what I meant. After changing the gain, can you check whether the values changed as expected? The values of the light, then, I suspect you mean. In which case, we could do that, and there is a possibility that one of them is. And if there's not one, we totally could add it, yeah. Like, basically you're saying, like, shine a certain light on it with a gain at a certain value, and then raise the gain to a higher value, and then make sure the output from the sensor is higher now with the same light, is how I understand what you mean now. If you go from gain 6, they should double. Yeah. Yes, we could test that. This one, it doesn't look like does it currently, but we could, and that would be a good one to add. Wait for the data, wait for the first data ready. Does this have a data? Yeah, I guess it does have a data ready in the status flag. This passed. It failed 0. Okay. This looks pretty sane to me. It's almost like this one's like validating how long it takes, which is interesting. Okay, so I see what it was saying about actual milliseconds. I think we don't care so much about that, truthfully. That's a bit much. And if we failed the same one on Arduino, I'm willing to basically call it fine. Just kind of the problem with using the tabs is, I think depending on how many characters are in this column, it ends up being different or something. Okay. But we got the same results, it sounds like. So yeah, on my Raspberry Pi, I have my user, which does have sudo, but I also have agent, which does not have sudo. I'm gonna run it, show you it doesn't work, but there's really no sense. I don't remember the password off the top of my head either, which is the first thing it's gonna ask for. For a while, it didn't have a password, but eventually I set one. I would like to see the output for myself. That's not really going to copy correctly, I don't think. I will say that is one of the downsides of using this through a terminal window like this, instead of like the IDE integration or one of the web front ends, like OpenClaw has a web front end. The copying gets a little messed up because of all the spaces in the terminal. So this should just run the latest code, which should be the last test it did, which was the light settings test, yeah. So I want to just run this and make sure it looks the same as this. It said that it failed because one of the tests failed, but really what I'm after is, does it match the Arduino output more so than does it literally pass all of the things or not? In this case, we're talking about a 10 millisecond difference. Like CircuitPython is just not guaranteed to be that accurate with real-time stuff. So I think you're just not likely to be able to accurately tell that, to be honest. In fact, it's actually going faster, which is interesting, but in any case, it is the same. So I do think we're fine here. Sweet. Okay. Let's have it fix the exception thing. So please don't use broad exceptions, and also only wrap the initialization in the try-catch. But that comes with the problem of all the rest of the code after it's not going to work. I guess what we could do is, yeah, maybe we just leave it wrapping the whole thing, but I would like it to be a less broad except. And also, actually, I would like it to just re-raise the exception so that we can see the actual output of it if it were to ever fail that way. This one doesn't really do any kind of try catching. It just checks on begin failing. Okay. So this is the wrong terminal. Let's say more specific. Please use a more specific exception type than exception. Also, please re-raise the exceptions in addition to the printed message. If try fails, then set a boolean to skip the rest. We could do that. In hindsight, I think I am fine with it being wrapped. Like at first, I was kind of taking the, which is truthfully almost it's like a thing I'm trying to be sort of cognizant of is the fail early pattern. So for a long time in my coding sort of career experience, I would have written stuff like this where it's like, if do a bunch of stuff, else if it failed, then handle the failure down at the bottom. And I notice more in CircuitPython core and other places where I read code from, there are a lot more fail early. So like if the thing is not right, then fail right away. And after that check is done, after you've returned or broke or whatever you're going to do, then go on and do the happy path. So I've made an effort to try to be conscious of that and try to follow that pattern a bit more. In this case, with this try catch though, I do actually think it makes more sense. Like the code is easier to understand in my mind and just better basically when it has this bigger try block where everything inside of here depends on the stuff above it succeeding. So I'm kind of okay with it being that way. Done. All 5 tests now catch OS and runtime. Specifically, OS is for I2C bus. Runtime is the driver missing, and it re-races so that we could see the output, which is very good. Nice. Okay. So let's try to have it do 6 through... Maybe let's just give it another 4 or so, 6 through 10. I find it interesting that it reads them all at once. Like one of the other cool things about this PyCoding agent deal is you can see its thinking steps. You can see like what it's doing when it's not talking to you yet. And I think it's interesting that it read all the files at once up front rather than like read one, work on the CircuitPython, read the next one, work on the CircuitPython. It like front loads all of its reading, basically. Front loads all of its like learning. It's look at what I'm gonna do and look at, basically. This isn't true. Is it? I don't think this is true. I mean, I'm like 99% sure we have proximity because we literally just looked at the example that had it, right? That was using it. Didn't we? Proximity read test? Dot proximity? Yeah. Maybe our thinking is too low. It may figure it out as well, too, though. I mean, this is not output, right? This is just a bunch of stuff that it's written to itself at this point. So it may come around and realize that it does actually have what it needs. Or it may go off the rails and try to implement a thing that already exists. Or like, who knows, try to use bus device directly or something. Talking about the data sheet? I didn't actually give it the data sheet. There is a copy of it on the device elsewhere. It could have like gone up a directory and then over a directory and down and looked and found it, but I didn't see anything in here that led me to think it actually did that. So I think it might be just making up what the datasheet says. Okay, now I have everything I need. Oh, it's still going. Okay, this is white, but it still was not Usually white is like back to the user. Maybe it is back to the user, but it's like... Okay, so those are going to be an issue. We're on pin D8, not D2, so that's not going to work. NeoPixels, we are not on pin D6. We are on pin just .neopixel because I'm using the built-in ones. I probably should have told it that, but... Proximity interrupt. Not interrupt? Interrupt. That one's going to be trickier to test because we'll have to move the thing in front of it. Oh, that's another one that's using the servo, actually. I'll have to get a servo hooked up. All right, 10 is the last one. I told it 6 through 10. Let's see if this did figure it. Nope. See, yeah, it went it went off the deep end and just wrote bus device ones. Or it's talking about the measurement rate? Well, I thought it... Yeah, I mean, I think it has both, honestly. Maybe not. Light measurement rate, proximity resolution. Okay. We're missing the proximity rate. Is that as long as that's actually a real thing, then we are in fact missing it. Well, we're missing it either way, but if it's not a real thing, we don't care as much. Proximity resolution. Well, that's no, because that's measurement rate. It's just called a different thing? Okay. We're gonna have to look in the data sheet. Okay. No. Yeah, we're missing one. I think we're missing one. We are still gonna have to look in the data sheet because, so we have light resolution reads from the light measurement rate register, but it reads 3 bits starting on the lowest one of 4. Light measurement rate, as opposed to light resolution, light measurement rate reads from the same register, which is named after it. Also reads 3 bits, but reads from 0. Proximity resolution reads 2 bits from the proximity measurement rate register starting at bit 3. And then there is seemingly like a missing one here for proximity measurement rate. So is that a thing in the Arduino driver? First of all. Maybe we try rate. Set light resolution, get light resolution, set light measurement rate, proximity resolution. Yes. Okay, so we have proximity measurement rate and get proximity measurement rate. Those did not get brought into the driver. So it was right about missing thing. I think it said that the proximity property was missing, but I may have misread it, or it may have just been wrong. It is writing a lot of stuff. The timing test is failing. Proximity rate constants being off. Going to update a bunch of constants. Does occasionally do this weird scroll thing. I don't trust now that it's like... Timing measurement from start to... Okay, yeah, I don't know if it's good progress, but I wonder, did it just change some constants to get the numbers to print that it wanted? Because that's not what we need necessarily, but close. Calibrate, looking at the measurements. All right, I think we are going to... I thought there was like, thought there was like a stop in there, but... In any case, it's definitely freaking out a little bit about the timings. It's about to run again. Did still get a test failed. Interesting, this says timeout 70 seconds, but it passed a duration of 50? Alright, well, we have made it to 11 a.m. my time, so about 1 hour. I will start wrapping it up. It looked like... Actually, I have not messed with this one yet, so we'll have to see on this one. I've not done LED pulses at all. That's to do with the IR LED, I believe. We'll have to check into that one. And then the interrupts are going to be tricky. Unless if it's using the NeoPixel. Oh, it is. Okay. We'll have to go back and give it the right pins. But other than that, I think this should be fine. Because this is almost the same as the one that I ended up doing yesterday. Or the day before? No, yesterday. Okay. Alright, did this ever finish or still going? Still going. On basically the same one. Okay. I don't know if I'm allowed to just, can I say like... I'm not sure if that will get sent in or what. Steering. I never actually tried to... Okay. That's pretty cool that it will still even give you the summary of like what happened and stuff, so... Again, like, take it with a grain of salt. It could have just made it up, but... All of those we did before. 6 to 10 are written and deployed. The current status. 6 is not working because the timing results flaky. Below the tolerance floor, fastest. One of those needs further thought. And then 7 through 10, it says passed. All files saved locally there. Ready to continue when you have direction on the timing approach. Nice. It even knew that I was basically saying to stop working on that one. All right. That is going to do it for today. I will sign off for now. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thanks for the folks in YouTube with questions. We had some good questions over there. I will be back on Saturday this week, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Central Time, over on my own channel. I will be back for some more CircuitPython streaming. As far as I'm aware, Scott is planning to do Deep Dive this Friday, although I think he does have, I think he mentioned in the meeting yesterday, the public meeting, he's got a child who's a bit sick, so that could certainly change the plans for this week, but tentatively, as far as I know, that was the plan, was for Scott to do Deep Dive on Friday. I will be back on Saturday on my channel. JP, I believe, will be streaming later today with a product pick. If you would like another opportunity to get some great discounts on Adafruit products, then check that out at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. There will be a product on sale there. And of course, like I mentioned up top, Raspberry Pi A+ week this week. If you would like to get cases or other accessories for Raspberry Pi A+, you can get those now at adafruit.com. And you should check back next week for the new category. With that, I will say so long, farewell. It has been a fun time, and I will see you next time.